Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. All right, you guys, peep game. All right, man. So, you know, um, you know, like I said, the more I think about this, the more pissed off I get because basically what happened with Anthony Joshua, how Anthony Joshua just botched a golden opportunity. And now that Anthony Joshua has lost to Alexander Usyk for the second time, and this is Anthony Joshua's third loss, and he suffers back-to-back losses. I think Anthony Joshua took a major setback, as far as his drawing power, as far as, potential purses go. It was just a major setback for him. But at the end of the day, I understand why there's a lot of videos going around, why a lot of people don't feel sorry for Anthony Joshua, because they don't like the way he moved when it came to Deontay Wilder. At the end of the day, everybody is to blame for this fight not happening, the potential fight. And Anthony Joshua cost himself millions. At the end of the day, there was a potential to get an undisputed fight made, and it was just every excuse in the book on why this fight couldn't get done. It was just excuse after excuses, but nobody wanted to budge. Nobody could put their ego aside. Al Heyman couldn't put his ego aside. Eddie Hearn couldn't put his ego aside. Anthony Joshua couldn't put his ego aside and give the fans at the time the fight that everybody was clamoring for. People keep saying this nonsense about black versus black fighters don't sell. Well, that's not true. If you look at some of the most successful fights in history, they have been between black fighters. But that's the mentality of people now. That's the mentality of certain people now. And the funny thing is, the person that's pushing that line, to me, appears to be black. Because at the end of the day, he's holding up another fight. Just like he played a role in Wilder versus Anthony Joshua not get made. But at the end of the day, as I said before, it don't matter how much was offered to Charles Martin. Wilder was a PBC fighter. Martin was a PBC fighter, had ties to the PBC. So it would have been easier to put Deontay Wilder in line to get that fight. But no, he sent him over there. He sent him over there, I guess, thinking that Eddie Hearn would eventually, make a deal to get an undisputed fight. But that's what he get for believing Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn gave him the shaft. Came out of nowhere announcing the deal with the Zone, which Eddie Hearn knew that deal was in place. And then basically here we are now, where Eddie Hearn was talking about, well, come to the Zone, and they tried to recruit all these PBC fighters. They got a couple to go over there, but most of them stayed. And they showed loyalty to Al Heyman for the most part. But then if you look at what's happening, did the loyalty get returned? You look where the PBC is now. You just hearing all kind of rumors about where they are financially, and they don't want to make certain fights, and that's still what's going on. They don't want to do outside fights, and that's a shame we using the word outside fights, because at the end of the day, it should just be fights. Who gives a damn what promoter somebody with? I'm not invested in that. At the end of the day, I just want to see the best fights made, and we just can't get that to happen because of egos. Like I said before, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder 4 years ago could have been the biggest fight made at the time. That could have been the biggest fight made, and basically they dropped the ball big time. They fumbled. Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder stood to make somewhere in between, who knows, between 100 to possibly max $150 million, maybe a piece. You talked about 300 million split between those dudes for 1 or 2 fights. That fight would have sold out in the States or Wembley Stadium. It would have did good. And I'm telling you right now, more than likely that fight would have ended in a spectacular knockout. Either Anthony Joshua would have stopped Wilder or Wilder would have stopped Joshua. But it would have been enough action to where fans would have been clamoring for more. And we couldn't get it. We couldn't get it because you didn't have anybody that was willing to budge. Nobody would put their egos to the side. Nobody cared about the fans. But then at the end of the day, they want us to buy bullshit pay-per-views when the pay-per-view we would have been willing to spend money on, we couldn't get it. Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, I'm telling you, would have did over 1 million pay-per-views. It would. I'm guaranteeing you that fight would have did over 1 million pay-per-views. I'm telling you that fight would have did between 1.2 to 1.5. It would have been profitable. Everybody would have stood to make money. And like I said, they could have found a way to do a joint pay-per-view with DAZN and Showtime. If HBO and Showtime can come together to make Floyd versus Manny Pacquiao, even though it took a while for that to happen. And previously, before that, Showtime and HBO had did a joint venture to make Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. So it could have been done. They could have had something structured, like they could have made it happen. And I believe Devin Haney when he say if fights want to be made, they can be made. And Anthony Joshua should have put pressure on Eddie Hearn saying, I want to fight Wilder. And like I said, once again, for our culture, you would have had a brother from across the water, versus a brother from the States. You could have marketed that fight any way you wanted. You could have called it Black Kings. You could have called it Kings. You could have called it Black Dynamite. You could have called it whatever you want, because it's like this. If Mexicans get to celebrate themselves, if they can title fights Mexican pride, why can't we title it Black Power? We could, you know what I'm saying? We could have, that would have been for us. And that's the problem. Nobody wants to give us our fight. And that's why I'm so frustrated and pissed off, because we can't get the other fight that we want to see, because we keep hearing all these obstacles that get thrown in the way at the last minute. You keep hearing the excuses, and that's all you heard with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. And like I said, that's why we are where we are now. And a lot of things went on to happen. Unfortunately, Deontay Wilder went on to lose consecutive fights to Tyson Fury. And then Anthony Joshua ended up losing consecutive fights to Alexander Usyk. At the end of the day, this is just real talk. Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder would have did far better than Tyson Fury versus anybody. At the end of the day, Tyson Fury doesn't really have a fan base. Nobody cares about Tyson Fury unless he's fighting Wilder. That's real talk. Or fighting, let's just keep it a buck. Let's just keep it a buck. Nobody really cared about Tyson Fury versus Dillian White. Nobody did. That's why that fight did, terrible pay-per-view numbers, because nobody asked for that fight. Nobody wanted to see it. Tyson Fury does not really have a fan base. You can holler about, well, he packed Wembley Stadium. Well, it's a catch to that. But I'm not gonna go into that. I don't feel like breaking that down. But the pay-per-view numbers were horrific. They were terrible. And like I said, that's what I mean when I say Deontay Wilder is a bona fide pay-per-view star. He does over 500,000 pay-per-views. So, just keeping it a buck, man. I know people don't want to hear this, but Yeah, that's just unfortunate, man. Every loss Anthony Joshua received, that was like maybe at least $20 million going down the drain, and his value dropping. That's just real talk. Because at the end of the day, he had 3 of the 4 belts. And Deontay Wilder suffering losses, that hurt him too. But I'm saying before the loss to Tyson Fury, if they would have made this fight 4 years ago, like I said back in 2018, like I said, who knows what would have happened? It wouldn't even have mattered what happened afterwards. Because at the end of the day, even if we get Usyk versus Tyson Fury, it's not going to have the buzz and it's not going to have the interest that Wilder versus Joshua would have had. That's just fact. I know some people don't like it and don't want to hear it, but that's facts. You don't like it, too damn bad. Anyway, it's your boy Town Biz. I'm out.